Good morning, children. Already in the previous module, we learned what is the definition of friction and what are the factors affecting the friction. Now, in this module, we are going to discuss what are the advantages and disadvantages of friction and how you can able to increase friction and in which situation we will decrease the friction. At the same time, what is meant by fluid friction. Friction is an opposing force which develops between two surfaces in contact. In our daily situations, in some situations, we observe friction is a necessary, but in some situations, it has some harmful effects. What are the advantages and disadvantages of friction? We will observe now. It will be easy to hold an earthen parts, but whereas can you able to hold that much easy when a glass or if the glass is surrounded by a grease? No. Why? Earthen surface has rough surface, so it will be easy to hold it. Whereas glass and grease over that produce less friction, there we are not able to hold it properly as in case of earthen pot. The same way it will help us to walk on the floor. If this friction is not there between the surface and the shoes, we are not able to walk it properly. For example, we may slip on smooth surface. Why? Because of less friction between two surfaces. And sometimes if you step on wet surface or on soap water or oily surfaces, we may fall down because of less friction on that surface. The same way, sometimes you may slip down because when you stamp over a banana peel. Why? Because banana peel produces a less friction because of its smooth surface. Thereby you are not able to walk on such type of surfaces, that is where there is a low friction. Now, is it easy to write without friction? No. Just you try to write on a smooth surface. You are not able to write because friction is required for writing on any surface which requires a rough surface. For example, can you write on a polythene paper with pencil or pen? No. You can able to write with pen or pencil on a rough paper. That means the surface should be more than rough than the polythene surface. Then only you can able to write with pen or pencil on that. And when you are observing in our daily life, how can you move these objects like either bicycle or two-wheeler or four-wheelers? Can these vehicles can drive as a normal road on a snow surface? No. Why? Means the surface between the tires and the road requires the necessary friction to drive the vehicles on the road. Whereas as the snow surface creates a less friction between the two surfaces, it's not easy to drive the vehicles as on road on snow surface. If you observe when you are applying the brakes, how that bicycle or two-wheeler or car will stops, because the friction between brake and the wheel rim stops that vehicles. If this friction is not developed between the brake pads and that wheels, it's not possible to stop a moving object. Not only in these situations, we can observe even in the construction also, because of interlock between the bricks makes you can able to construct a building or any structure. Here also friction helps to construction. And how can you able to light a matchstick without rubbing on the surface? Can you able to light it? No. Why? Because the rough surface on the sides of the matchbox, when you are striking the matchstick over that, the friction develops between the two surfaces which makes the matchstick to burn and produce heat. Without friction, you are not able to strike a matchstick. And still now we observe all these situations, what are the advantages. That means those situations said that friction, without friction you are not able to do that works. But if you are going on using some objects, like observe your shoes. When the school reopens, you will used to buy a new shoes. After 6 months, how it will happen? You may observe worn out. Why? As already we know, friction help us to walk. As we are going on walking by using the shoes, the friction between the surface of the shoes and on the road makes these soles of the shoes to worn out. That means it is an disadvantage. Not only this one, if you observe your pencil or eraser, when you are going on using, they may be used up because of friction. And as the machines are going on working, it requires some energy to work, that is electric energy. As they are going on moving, the machine parts waste energy and wear off parts. Why? Because if you observe any type of machinery without contact between that objects, a machine never used to run. As its continuous movement between the surfaces, the energy will be waste and also the parts also wear off. And if you are going on drive a car or two-wheeler, what will observe? You may observe the engine bay gets heated up. Sometimes you may observe the vehicle will stop. At that time, if you open the bonnet, if you observe what is there in that one, beside the engine, one round structure will be there. In that we used to pour water. If this water is used up, what is the engine, whatever the, already we know where the machine parts are going on using, it produce heat. As this heat produced by this engine is get absorbed by the water present in that. As this water is used up, the heat produced by the engine makes this vehicle to more heated up and sometimes it leads to stop that vehicle. So these are some situations where you may observe friction is a necessary evil. So what do you understand from all this discussion? In some situations, friction is necessary. In some situation, it produces a disadvantage. That means harmful effects. That means in some situations, we need to increase friction. In some situation, we need to decrease friction. Then how you can increase and decrease friction? Let us discuss. There are some situations where we need to increase the friction. For example, if you observe the tires of a vehicle which has grooves, these grooves help in increasing the friction between the surface of tire and the surface of road, which helps to increase friction with the help of these grooves and also gives a better grip even the vehicle is moving on a wet surface. The same way, if you observe, the sports persons use shoes which have a spikes on that. These spikes gives a better grip on the ground, and when they are moving forward with the help of these spikes, he pushes the ground back and helps him to move forward. The same way, if you observe, a carpenter uses a sandpaper for smoothing the wood with the help of this sandpaper by applying external force with the help of his hand. So, along with the sandpaper, the force applied increases the interlocking of surfaces between sandpaper and wood, thereby increases friction which makes that surface smooth. When you are riding a bicycle, the brake pads are not in contact with the wheels. When you apply the brake, the wheel pads come in contact with the wheel, it will helps to stop the object. If these brake pads become smooth, if you are applying the brake also, it will not stop. So the surface between the brake pads and the wheel helps to increase friction, there it will stops. Athletes need to increase friction for better grip. For that, they used to apply a coarse powder. The same way, even the kabaddi players, they used to apply the soil to their hands for better grip. So these are the some situations we come across in our daily life where we need to increase friction. There are some situations where we need to reduce the friction. For example, already we know when two surfaces are in contact in the machines as they are going on working, the surfaces may wear and tear, may cause the damage of the machines. Then how you can reduce this friction? By using the oil, grease, etc. we can reduce the friction between the parts. How these grease and oil can reduce the friction? What do you call these substances? These substances are called lubricants. These lubricants are applied between two surfaces in contact in the machines, and also we may observe in hinges also. How these lubricants reduce the friction? As we are applying these as a layer between the two surfaces, this forms like a layer between that, thereby reduce the interlocking of the two surfaces, thereby reduce the friction. The same way, if you observe in cycles, we observe ball bearings. Why they use the ball bearings where two objects are in contact? That means if you observe the structure of the ball bearings, middle the round ball like structures are there which produce the rolling friction when it is moving. Already we know the rolling friction is very less than the sliding friction. As it produces the rolling friction, the friction will be reduced there, the damage of that object will be minimized. You can observe easily you can move even the heavy luggage bags. Why means? Because of the rollers provided to that object. As these rollers provide the rolling friction, easily you can move that object, heavy object from one place to another place. Here these rollers, as its surface reduces the interlocking between two surfaces in contact, will reduce the friction. In our home, we may observe we used to play the carom board. As we are going on using this board, its surface becomes rough. It will become to play over that. How you can minimize the friction here? By using a powder. These fine granule powder may form like a layer over the surface which reduces the friction, thereby the coins can smoothly move over that surface. So still now we observe all these frictions whatever we are discussing between two surfaces in contact are solids. That means friction will develop only between solids? No, this friction will develop even between the solid and air and solid and water also. Then what do you call this friction? This friction which is exerted by the air and water are called fluid friction. Why it is called fluids? Generally, if you observe liquids and gases together called fluids. Why you call those as fluids? Because these two do not have a fixed shape and easily deformed. That is the reason these two comes under fluids. So in general, the friction which exerted by these fluids are called fluid friction. Can you experience if you throw a stone to certain height? When it is moving through the air, even this object, that is stone, resist the air. The same way the objects are the living organisms which are moving in water also experience this resistance in water. That is nothing but fluid friction. The fluid friction otherwise called drag. And what are the factors? Is there any factors which affect this fluid friction? Yes, one of the factor is nature of fluid. How in case of solid nature of surface, the same way even the nature of fluids also affects the friction. How it will affect? Generally, if you observe water and honey, which can able to flow freely, water, whereas honey compared to water, it is more thickness. As the substance, the liquids which has more thickness will exert more friction. The fluid which has less thickness may offers less friction. The thickness is otherwise called viscosity. So, because of this viscosity, fluid's resistance may increase or decrease. Generally, if you make a object to move in the water, it will move freely as it has less thickness, it offers less friction. The same object if you throw in the honey, it will not move as in water because its viscosity is more. So it will exert more friction. So this is one factor on which the fluid friction depends. And the another effect is speed of object. For example, if you observe a car is moving with 100 meters per hour and another car is moving with 50 meters per hour. So which car will offers more friction? Obviously, which object is moving with high speed will experience more friction. The object which is moving less speed, it offers less friction. That shows that speed of the object also affects friction. And the another factor is shape of the object. Have you observed the shape of the boat or the aeroplane seems to be the shape of the fish? Yes. Why it is designed in that shape? Because if you observe the movement of aquatic animals, all these aquatic animals have a special design shape naturally. This shape makes these organisms which can resist the friction in that water, which can move freely. That shape is called streamlined shape. Based on that, these objects which are moving in air and water are designed in such a manner that is streamlined shape. For example, if you observe, a car will experience less friction than a bus. Why? If you observe the shape of the car, it is streamlined shape, thereby it offers less friction. Whereas a bus is not streamlined, it is like a rectangular shape. So it will experience a more friction. So these are the factors on which the fluid friction depends. Nature of the fluid, speed of the object and shape of the object. So today in this lesson what we have learned, when you push an object or if you throw an object, it experiences an opposing force. That opposing force is nothing but force of friction which develops in the opposite direction of the force applied. And this friction depends upon some factors. That is, in case of solids, it is nature of the surface and also mass of the object. When coming to fluids, it is also depends on nature of fluid, speed and also shape of that object. And in some situations, we need to increase friction. For example, in athletes and gymnastic players and the kabaddi players, as they used to win, they use some coarse powder and soil to get a better grip. And in case of vehicles, we observe the ridges and grooves over the tires increases the friction. And there are some situations we need to decrease friction. What are that conditions? We can decrease friction by using the lubricants. By using the lubricants, it forms like a layer between the two surfaces, thereby reduce friction between machinery parts, which reduce the wear and tearing of that machinery parts and will avoid the wastage of that material. And also, in some cases, we observe to reduce the friction, that is in the form of ball bearings, and also by using powder. If it is an electrical appliances, we can use graphite. These are some situations where we need to decrease friction. And also the friction exerted by the fluids is called fluid friction.